Well, hi there. Welcome to episode 216 of Roqe. Rest in peace, dear Kian Pirfalak. We must win this battle for you. I'm jianghomeshi. Hello from Toronto. Salam Dustan Aziz. Durud ba shoma. Kian Jun, you are now another fallen angel of ours, and we know what we have to do. We must win this battle for you. Kian was 10 years old when his life was stolen away yesterday. And the world should not rest until this Islamic regime is made to pay. This is not just a protest, it's a revolution. We started saying that almost 2 months ago. But on the way to revolution in Iran, let's make no mistake. This is also a humanitarian crisis. The Islamic Republic regime has proven that its thirst for clinging on to power will know no boundaries. It doesn't matter how many mothers have to cry. It doesn't matter how many citizens have to die. There is no pretense anymore. No imagined two sides or self-defense to justify war. This is a flailing, morally bankrupt theocracy on its last legs. Rest in peace, dear Kian Pirfalak. We must win this battle for you. Many of us know this heartbreaking story by now. Little Kian was in a car on his way home with his parents and his brother. It was in Izeh, in the Khuzestan province, where my own lineage can be found. He was in 3rd grade. He was 10 years of age. Maybe you've seen the videos of this diminutive inventor, this budding sage, his face full of wonder, his future aglow, his memorable words in the name of God, of the rainbow. Kian Pirfalak's day probably started like that of most kids yesterday, full of energy, ideas, potential, traveling with his family with seemingly little at stake. He would not have known this would be the last trip he would take. And it was live ammunition from Islamic regime forces that would steal his life, another crime against humanity in a theocracy fomenting strife, sending thugs out to shoot at Iranian citizens on subway platforms or street corners, or even traveling innocently in their automobiles, turning an entire nation into a war zone to do anything to maintain their crumbling grip on power, their illegitimate dictatorship, their patriarchal dystopia, a world where the life of a 10-year-old kid is worth less than an octogenarian mullah? It's so sad you could barely make it up in a fictional horror story. Rest in peace, dear Kian Pirfalak. We must win this battle for you. And this must be a message to the world. Can we ever stop playing politics and seeking what is materially beneficial? Is there any human rights organization whose pledges are more than artificial? And this must be a message to all those still staying silent, still on the fence. If you're an Iranian anywhere who still has not come to sense, let's cut the bullshit and recognize what is happening. There will never be a justification for taking a young life like this. Make the promise to remember his name, remember his face, remember the Kian Pirfalak case. Make the vow to avenge this crime, a life taken before prime. Make sure we won't forget this time. Send a message to every mother and every father of every Iranian child. This will never again be tolerated. This will never again be allowed. Make the children of Iran a priority and make the memory of this little boy proud. Rest in peace, dear Kian Pirfalak. We know what we must do. Rest in peace, dear Kian Pirfalak. We won't forget your dreams too. Rest in peace, dear Kian Pirfalak. We will win this battle for you. This is Roqe, episode 216, The Uprising. Voices from Inside Iran, number 6. Here we are in the Roqe studio in Toronto. We're going to get to the voices from inside Iran, part of our special series we've been doing as often as we can on Thursday programs, speaking to Iranians, young Iranians who are on the front lines of demonstrating inside Iran. So we're going to go to Shiraz, Tehran, Kashan, and more in the next hour or two. We'll get to that. But first, a special Roqe Roundtable. Let me introduce our trusted regulars. Hi, Pega.
Hello.
Formerly Smart Pega, still Smart Pega, but we don't use the funny nicknames as much right now. And hi, Shaya.
Hi, Azizam. Hi.
And a very special guest joining our roundtable to kick things off today. Reza Rohani is a renowned Iranian, German-American composer, producer, and pianist for film and television. He came to global attention for his fusion works of jazz sounds with Iranian, European, and Middle Eastern influences. He's a graduate of Berklee College of Music and one of the most popular instrumentalists famous in Iranian music these days. He's also been very outspoken about the regime in Iran and has been supporting the protest movement around the world. In fact, he was on one of our earlier episodes of the Uprising a few weeks ago. Reza Rohani joins us in the Roqe studio. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Nice
Pleasure
to have you
to
here
be
in person. Yeah,
yeah,
really good to see you. Let me start off with the roundtable by saying it's been quite a couple of days. Obviously, I was talking about little Kian in the essay there, but observing what's been happening in Iran on days that we knew were expected to be big strikes and protests to mark the anniversary of Aban, and then the concomitant crackdown by the regime. You know it's going to happen, and you know that the crackdown is going to be brutal, and we know this is all part of the mechanics and the process of how this revolution is going to take place, and yet it's still horrifying to watch and at times inspiring to watch at the same time, to see the strength of the young Iranians who are out there continuing to put themselves on the line. Let me ask you, just in terms of observing, probably doom scrolling like we all are through your iPhone, how are you feeling today, Reza?
Well, you know what? So I think we are in a phase where the movement, the revolution, is asked to make some sacrifices, pay the price for freedom, and it is not cheap, and they pay for it with their lives, and it is heartbreaking to watch. However hopeful you might be that this may lead to some positive change and to freedom, it is still heartbreaking to watch people, risk their lives and lose their lives, unfortunately.
It's none of it is a surprise in the sense that week one after Amini was killed and the protests were beginning, I remember us saying, there was a lot of excitement. People had, look at the protest movement in Iran, and Pagan, I remember you and I saying right in this space, right in this moment, saying, this is going to get a lot worse. This is going to get bloody. There's going to be, as you just said, Reza, I think appropriately, sacrifices and God knows that all these beautiful people whose lives are being sacrificed for the sake of the revolution. Some unwittingly in a car with their family. Not even necessarily on the front lines protesting, but you don't know how exactly the crackdown and the bloody attempts at stopping things by the regime are going to play out. You know it's going to happen, but you don't know. So to actually watch some of this video footage, and by the way, the brave people who are holding up an iPhone during these events, the video footage from the subway yesterday, that was anyone who's Iranian who's listening to this probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. This is the oddity of this moment where we can talk about things that we can assume the entire audience knows what we're talking about. But in case you haven't seen it, there's video footage of... There
was video footage of a subway shooting nightmare, is what I can call it. Like you said, someone quite brave was videotaping, I guess, just... they were going somewhere or they were taking the train, and security forces opened fire on people at a station. And so you could see in this video the absolute chaos of, obviously people running for their lives, literally. And it seems that there's been reports since that security forces were actually targeting women who weren't wearing their mandatory hijab. And, as soon as I saw that video, it reminded me of an article that I had actually read in The Guardian not too long ago. And it was cited in this article that at the beginning of September, one of the, there's a headquarter for promoting virtue and preventing vice is what this department is called. Don't know what that means. But an individual by the name of Mohammad Saleh Hashemi Golpayegani, quite a name there. He actually announced that the government was going to start using face recognition technology to target women on transportation services, so like the metro. And so now we've seen the use of that turn into this.
There was more than just one video. There was another video from inside one of the subway cars. I don't know if you guys saw that. It's about 2 minutes long. It's really terrifying. It's like watching a horror movie. And if you have any kind of claustrophobic tendencies, which I do, I just imagine myself being in that situation. There's screaming, there's women and men being shot at and attacked. And again, it's one of these things where, as I was just saying in the opening essay, or suggesting, that there's no pretense anymore. They're not even. It's not even sort of, well, we were attacked, so we had to shoot back,
right.
or this is. There's no excuse. It's just. I mean, can you imagine? We're going to go into a confined space where there's a bunch of people, most of them young people, seemingly, and just start shooting. It's like the worst possible. I mean, it's almost so horrific that it would be cheap to write this into a movie. You kind of go, well, that's not realistic. I mean, the bad guys can't be that bad, right?
Yeah. It's just the disregard for human life that continues to blow my mind. I mean, when we see videos like this, and it's almost like we know the level of brutality, and yet every single time a video comes out of Iran, it's almost like they've pushed the envelope that much more. And like you're saying, it's so horrific that you wouldn't even think of it in a horror movie, let alone in reality.
How do you respond when you see that, Reza?
Honestly, I don't have the heart to watch it. So I know what you're talking about, and I've seen a couple of seconds, but I simply
You mean you see it and you just stop watching?
I cannot bear that cruelty. That is not what I was made for. I'm aware of it and saddened about it, but I cannot watch it. Also, that organization that you were talking about is Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy az Munkar.
Okay.
Prevent vice.
I mean, I don't know if it's just a waste of time to even do this as a thought experiment, but I sometimes think about who are these guys who. And assuredly they're mostly guys. I mean, I know there's some of the women or Gashti Arshad who pick up the women, but these people with the guns yesterday were guys. Who are these guys who think that they're doing some kind of service? I mean, what's the I can sort of imagine convincing myself, okay, I'm going to war if there's a war and the bad guys are over there and here I am with my teammates and we're rushing forward. What goes through someone's mind to say, I'm going to go into a subway with a gun and start shooting people? Like, how much are you getting paid? Like, what is your do you, having grown up in Iran, have more insight into how this would be possible?
Yes, not only growing up, but I kind of, in my high school years, I kind of lived among these kind of people, and they're brainwashed. They're easily their brain are washed, and they believe that they are like protecting country, protecting Islam by killing like some.
They shooting at a woman because she's not wearing a headscarf. They believe they're doing the right thing.
Yes, and they are not open-minded to accept that. Like their belief is making all these problems.
I think, unfortunately, this is not very unique to our country. In that region, we saw what happened to Malala, for example, in Pakistan, how people were, snipers were on rooftops shooting students that wanted to go to school in Afghanistan and in Africa. So unfortunately, the most dangerous people on earth are zealots that, think they are basically doing the bidding of God, and so their conscience is just.
That's a very good point. That it isn't necessarily just unique to Iran, although it doesn't help me understand it any better. I still can't get my head around it. It's madness. But and by the way, it's not unique to Islam either. I mean, things like this have been done in the name of other religions as well. boy, I guess the flip side of the last 2 or 3 days in terms of the dire horror of what we're talking about is that the movement is not going away, and that no matter how many dictates and attempts to crack down, including going to the Majlis and saying we're going to recommend to the judiciary that there should be executions for people who protest, all of that has not stopped people. And we've been talking about Tehran, but in places like Kurdistan, it's way more aggressive in terms of lighting things on fire and getting out in the streets. And I mean, this, we sort of say this on a weekly basis, but I still have conversations with people who go, I don't know if this is. This really a revolution? Is it really gonna? I think, maybe, you know, and this is evidence to me that, you know, the people will not listen to whatever hyperbolic fear tactic this regime wants to engage in. It's not working anymore.
No, I mean, we passed the level that there is no coming back, there is no obeying this system anymore, and so we have to and also still we know that some bloody days are ahead of us, so we have to be ready.
Mean, we've talked about it before, but we've said there's different things that need to happen if you're looking at it from the lens of, let's say, a political science perspective, right? Is that when you're looking at a revolution, certain defections need to happen, certain industries need to support what's going on, and that's what we're seeing with the strikes.
The chips are falling. Yeah,
exactly. The last couple of days, what we've seen with the various strikes that have taken place over the last 2-3 days now, I mean, how can you deny that this is a revolution at this point?
I guess part of what is heartening about what is occurring as the brave folks who are in Iran continue to grow this movement, the revolution, is that we are finally seeing increasing global attention. I wouldn't say it's at the place where we'd want it to be, and I think correctly a lot of people are once again looking at UNICEF today after a 10-year-old boy is murdered. But for example, this week we saw former American President Bill Clinton come out and whatever you think of Bill Clinton, his statement was very clear and strong and directed at global awareness for what's happening in Iran. And I feel like we're seeing a lot more of that. If the first month was characterized by where the hell is the West, or maybe the first 2 months, but we're getting to a point where it's becoming more expected for prominent people in the West to know that something is going on in Iran. It obviously, the double standards and hypocrisy still exists around, you every single time you go, well, if there was somebody shooting at a subway in Tokyo or in Paris, do you think we'd be the headlines would? I mean, it's not in the headlines today. It's not like the West is really covering this in an enthusiastic way, but global awareness is increasing. Do you feel that, Peggy?
It's definitely increasing. And I was just going to mention something about the video message that former President Bill Clinton put out. He said something kind of towards the end of his message where he said, "We will stand with you for as long as it takes to achieve your freedom." And I thought that was a really important part of what he said because, historically we've seen the West try and play savior more than anything else. And the way that he put out this message to me was, not only is the West, quote unquote, starting to come to the realization of the importance of what is going on, but I feel like they're also becoming more and more educated about what's actually taking place and what it is that the Iranians want. Because formerly you would see, talks of foreign intervention and things like that. And now when you have a former president say something like this, I think it really drives the message home.
You want to believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like that's happening, Reza?
Well, I feel like everything is, going at a natural pace, and I welcome that. So first of all, I have never seen the West as a savior, personally. So I'm trying to say that at the end of the day, gaining freedom and protecting it is every society's own responsibility. And this is the only way you can guarantee it over a longer period of time. Again, look at Afghanistan. As soon as the American protection was gone, the Taliban were back.
Yes.
So it is our own responsibility to learn this process, to learn to respect other people's interpretation of their own freedom. And without a cultural shift in Iran, it will not happen.
But surely there are two different things. Imperialism, or let's go in and intervene, etc., is different from. I mean, there's that meme that's going around, or that a few people have cited. That is, we don't want you to save us. We just want you to stop saving the murderers. Stop enabling them. And surely for example, the international isolation and condemnation of Russia earlier this year when it came to Ukraine has had an effect. Would you not say?
Well, yes, for Russia, that was actually connected to world economy. But, the West has long forgotten the Iranian people, unfortunately. What they were concerned with was the Iranian nuclear program. And that's why they have already, all the sanctions possible at place already. And to just basically... And
calling back ambassadors, closing embassies. You don't think any of those things matter?
Well, no, I don't think that they don't have any effect on it. They do, but honestly, I don't deem them as important. Yeah, I especially
and not buying oil, is that a pipe dream?
Well, no, that's already
puns,
that's already happening. According to the sanctions, that's already happening. Officially it is. Right. Officially it is. And I honestly, if they are not doing it for their own strategic advancements, I don't think they're gonna do it for the freedom fighters in Iran or whatever. I strongly believe that when it comes to, for example, in history, when it comes to apartheid in South Africa, it did help because the country's economy was so included in the world economy. But they have been, I don't know, I honestly, I think that, the Islamic Republic has been isolated for many years for other reasons. And they have, by the way, they have always been repressing freedom in Iran.
Yes.
Ever since their conception.
That's true. It's not a new thing.
Yeah, yes. but the sanctions are relatively new. And they have nothing to do with the Iranian people's, right for freedom, basic human rights, unfortunately, and they're already in place. And for now, for the West to assume any kind of role beyond that is.
What about
ridiculous.
The West being part of a system of organized support for the people of Iran to be able to achieve self-determination? For example, helping to provide ways to crack the blockages of the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that significant?
It is very significant. It is. But it has, again, nothing to do with for example, a former president, saying that we are with you.
Right.
This is already happening.
Right.
And this is, by the way, something that is going to be determined by just a few. And it's not a democratic process here in the West.
But doesn't part of... I'm not debating you. Well, I am. I'm somewhat debating you, but I'm trying to figure out how I feel about this. Doesn't it make a difference that the West supported Ukraine in a material way?
Oh yeah,
and that is part of what's enabled Ukraine to battle back against this, and that literally these kids in Iran are throwing stones. Wouldn't it be helpful if we supported them in some material way?
Absolutely.
And isn't international awareness about creating the conditions where that can happen?
Well, honestly, I absolutely agree with the Ukraine situation, that it would not have been successful without physical intervention, like material help. But unfortunately, that's not what anybody is talking about right now about Iranian people. So it's just moral support.
I do hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you in the sense that what does it make? What difference does it make to Bill Clinton? I will say this though. I'll ask them again today because we're bringing them on the show. But we have consistently asked young people who we've spoken to who are inside Iran, or forget young people who are in Iran who are on the front lines of the demonstrations. Does it make a difference to you? And your sisters and brothers and your comrades out there, that there's a massive demonstration in Berlin or in LA or in Toronto, and they consistently say it makes a huge difference to them in terms of morale. So the Iranian diaspora being there and being vocal does make a difference to those in Iran. I don't know if they're watching Bill Clinton and high-fiving and going, he's on our side any more than Angelina Jolie or whatever, but anything that can help at this point, right?
Yes, my problem, I think, is, the experience that I had back in 2008 with the death of Michael Jackson. And
2009.
2000. Okay.
Green Movement, right?
Yes, 2009. I think the problem that I have is with that attention and that going away for no more than the celebrity's death. So basically what I'm trying to say is that this kind of support is not to be counted on, because it can just wane in a second. It can be gone with something totally unrelated.
It's a perfect segue. It's a perfect segue because I wanted to talk about the World Cup, and on Monday I actually name-checked that Michael Jackson's death in the Green Movement was, you're absolutely right, took Iran off the headlines because everybody focused on Michael Jackson for the next 2 weeks. And in the similar way, I fear that might be what happens as soon as the World Cup begins, in as much as Iran has been in the headlines. There's a lot of things competing for attention right now. But this leads to a conversation about the World Cup. And there's a lot to talk about in terms of everything from Team Melli and the ongoing sort of confusion about how Iranians should be reacting to this, because of course some people are saying don't even watch, others are saying let's try and make a political point with this, and others are saying, hey, I'm going to watch, I love the team and I want to, I love football. And somewhere between that, one hopes that the community figures out where it stands. But just before we get to Team Melli, I should say Qatar in general and this World Cup, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I listen to an Arsenal podcast, and I listen to an Irish guy and an English guy. These are not Iranians, debating for half an hour about whether they should watch the World Cup, not even go to the World Cup, watch the World Cup. The Qatar's human rights issues, issues around freedom of expression, everything from the anti-LGBTQ policies to, there's some absurdities, no dating, drinking, whatever. This is a Middle Eastern country, but now, and germane to Iranians as well, is the crackdown on journalism and on reporters. So we saw a couple of days ago a Danish reporter in the middle of his report being told you can't film here, and he said, I've come to your country to cover the World Cup. So it's not unique to Iranians, but there is an Iranian network named Iran International, which of course has been broadcasting a lot of the anti-regime protests and bringing on a lot of people. And they had a number of journalists or reporters from Iran International accredited for the World Cup, and those accreditations have been revoked by Qatar now, which says to me, not only can you not protest in Qatar, not only do we not want to, along with FIFA, we've said we don't want anybody making this a political event, whatever the hell that means. The World Cup always has those elements to it. But now we're not even going to allow reporters to come in and talk about this, and God forbid they talk about what might be happening in Iran.
Yeah.
Do you want to give the facts on that? Did I get it pretty much right?
Yeah, you got it pretty much right. A couple things I want to add. So Iran International was named a terrorist organization by the Iranian government, and that coincides with when they had their passes revoked by the Qatari officials. So there's obviously some connection there, clearly.
Right.
And in terms of the Danish reporter that you were talking about, it's funny because on that video you actually see him show his press pass, and he's showing this individual like, look, this is what I have, you've allowed me to do this. And the response is, do you want me to break your camera? I mean, that's what he was faced with. So I mean, it's unbelievable to see that suppression and to still want to maintain some level of normalcy with this World Cup.
There's also I would want to flag that there is some hypocrisy around really picking on Qatar in the sense that the World Cup has been held in places like the last World Cup was in Russia.
Right.
That isn't, doesn't have the best record when it comes to freedom of expression, et cetera, or imprisoning dissidents, et cetera, as well. And some of the teams that are engaged in the World Cup come from places where there's, laws banning, homosexuality, et cetera. So we kind of have to navigate through this in terms of how much this is an exception to what we've seen in the past and the Olympics being held in China and what have you. But it's certainly a question mark around in general, how we feel about these large events being held in a place that is spending billions of dollars to promote itself like Qatar. And then, of course, secondly, how do we feel with the revolution going on and with the Iranian team playing? And we'll make that a separate conversation from whether I watch Team Canada or England play, etc. So protesters in Tehran a couple of hours ago burned the banner of the Iranian national football team that's above one of the roadways or highways there. Where are we at on this, Shaya, for you? Where are you at with Team Melli? What do you do starting next week?
Still, I mean, in 4 days, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still confusion. In one hand, I mean, first of all, it's very interesting for me that in Arsenal podcast, they were talking that maybe they are also boycotting the World Cup.
Absolutely, not because of Iran necessarily, but because of Qatar. Absolutely. Wow. No, that's a general conversation. I mean, this has been years that people have been. There's been a lot of journalistic work done on, why was Qatar? Why did FIFA even give this to Qatar in the first place? It's not even the World Cup's being held in November and December to appease the Qatari climates, and I mean the whole thing is a cash cow, right? It's just been about money deals and stuff. But this is a question mark. Mind you, as I also said on Monday, once the tournament begins, maybe the guys on the Arsenal podcast will start talking about the players and the teams and who's winning and, that was a great goal and stuff. That usually is what happens in these cases. But go ahead.
So, I mean, in terms of Iran, I mean, Team Melli, I really don't know. Like, I imagining, like, let's say Iran beats England. So I would be happy, honestly. But then I think that regime can take over this win for their own goal. Like, this is how we build our country, that we support athletes that they can beat England. So it's I really don't know what. I don't know.
You don't know.
Confusion.
You literally don't know. Are you going to watch?
It depends on what time is it. What time?
I think that's a yes. Well, Mr. Reza Rohani, what's your thought? Are you a football fan?
I definitely am when it comes to I am a football fan, I think, by any definition. Generally, I think a revolution should be more inclusive. And if it really wants to change something, and if it really wants to bring freedom, it has to be freedom for everybody. It cannot be freedom for a specific way of thinking or a specific preference. And I think it is really harsh how people are reacting to just a simple meeting where the names are being called and people standing up, and
the meeting with Raisi,
meeting with
Team
Raisi,
Melli.
yes.
You're surprised that people have an issue with that?
I'm not surprised, but I do not think that that they should be judged solely on that. I think that football or soccer in general is very politicized in Iran, and is a known fact, and that people that are outspoken don't even get picked. That is also a known fact. My point is that so I did not like that meeting. I did not like what I saw. But I'm not going to judge them solely on that. I'm going to take this into account together with their other actions. And also, it is a much higher price for somebody who is well known that speaks out.
Like Ali Daei?
Yeah.
I mean, he said he wouldn't go to Qatar.
I am so in awe of Ali Daei, of Ali Karimi, especially of Ali Daei, because he's also in Iran right now.
Yeah.
It is something that I praise. I am very amazed by it. I think he just basically, definitely, in my opinion, he is one of the biggest heroes of this, because he will be paying a big price for all his support. But we should be more inclusive. Judging people just because in that context they were there. I don't think that's the right idea.
Do you just? I'll come to you in a second, Pega. Just, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. If you're not sure, you could say so. That's what Shaya Darraft. I don't know. I see both sides. Are you gonna? Like, what happens next Tuesday? Do you cheer? Do you wear your Iran jersey? I'm just out of curiosity.
No, honestly, no. And I don't know if it's because of that meeting or not. It might have been different if they had acted differently. It might have been different. But right now, so I'm not willing to condemn them, but I'm also not that passionate,
enthusiastic
about them
right now. They still could do something. We don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I
was going to say, I know that meeting with Raisi set off quite a bit of conversation and judgment and hate, to be quite frank. But I think that was one of those instances where maybe they had to. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe the
meeting came on the heels of them not doing anything for weeks before that, right?
Right.
It's not like that suddenly the meeting came out of nowhere too.
No,
I mean,
I
the meeting
understand.
there were people who were already frustrated or really concerned, etc. We had Mehrdad Ahmadpour on the show last week going, I that was before the Raisi meeting. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, what I was trying to say is, and I think Shaya was mentioning this in one of the previous episodes, is that they've been at camp for a month. There's, all this pressure built up. They're going into the World Cup. I'm still hopeful. I'm holding out. I really am. I'm hoping that, once they get to one of their first games, they will do something. And I think at that point, maybe that's the time to quote unquote judge. I agree. I think that there's an immense amount of pressure on these individuals, more so than we know. And I think it's unfair to judge them without knowing all of the details. And on the topic of Ali Daei, yes, I agree. I mean, who could say anything other than to praise him and to be in complete awe and just absolute pride with what he's done. But who knows what's going to happen to him? I mean, we've seen, right? And Nazrekavi, we've seen so many other individuals who have been in the public eye, whether it be athletes or actors or celebrities of any sort, and we've seen what's happened to them, or we've seen the false or faked confessions afterwards and the pressures that have led them to
although there is a school of thought, Reza, maybe you can weigh on this, there's a school of thought that says someone like Ali Daei is so iconic that he's almost got a bit of safety around him, because the regime wouldn't dare do something to him, whereas if you're just one of the players on Team Melli, you don't have that same kind of safety. Do you think that's true?
I think it's definitely, it has some truth to it. But is he bigger than Hashemi Rafsanjani, for example? I don't know. There is. I don't think anybody is safe in Iran other than Khamenei and his son. Maybe.
No, he's not bigger,
Yeah.
but he's more popular. That's the thing,
Well, yeah,
you know?
but I understand. I understand what you mean. I'm his. He's very popular with me. So I love him, and I hope that he will stay safe, he and his family, and nothing happens to them, God forbid. But. Anyway, so I think his actions are heroic because he is risking a lot.
Yeah. It's a really what a bizarre twist of history that the World Cup is happening in. Like the World Cup happens for a few weeks every 4 years, so that's happening at the same time as this revolution, and the World Cup happens to be in a place that is about as close as you can get to Iran, geographically and frankly, systematically, legally to a certain extent, culturally, and in a place where protest isn't allowed. And so, I mean, all of this is amping this up in a way that, just wouldn't be the reality. If it's a strange collision of events. All right, let's before we move on to our guests inside Iran, Reza, you're so kind to come in here, and one of the reasons you're in Toronto is because you're doing a show on Saturday night with Sarah, right?
Yes.
And where is the show, by the way?
The show is in Richmond Hill Center
for the Arts, Richmond Hill.
Yes.
So, and can people still get tickets?
Yes,
Okay.
they can, and they should.
And they should. All right, so, it's great to have you here because you've been doing concerts and you are doing a concert here, and we've been having this ongoing conversation about which concerts should happen, which ones should be canceled. You must be aware of this conversation. I'm sure you guys had these chats with each other about. So tell me about the decision to go ahead and how you feel about these kind of conversations these days about whether we should be having and going to concerts or not.
Well, to be honest with you, first of all, I'm actually happy about any kind of conversation that happens nowadays, especially if it helps shape the culture in a more accurate way. First of all, one of the things that I think that has to be talked about is just the terminology. Like, people seem to have a problem with the word concert because apparently that is equals partying for many people, which of course is actually quite, to be very frank, it's actually quite insulting to the word because. So a concert has been...
Wagner had concerts.
Exactly. Wagner had concerts, Beethoven, Mozart, all these people had concerts.
Not exactly happy music. Wagner.
Not necessarily always. Anyway, so there's nothing wrong with happy music. There's a time for any kind of music, but I think this is not a time for silence. That is my firm stance. I refuse to be silenced by anyone. Islamic Republic tried it on me quite successfully in Iran, but I found a way out of it, and I've been performing here ever since. And as you guys know, I have composed pieces specifically for this movement and for this revolution, and so to basically just bring a musical performance down to a level that is just comparable to a party is not what I stand for. I think that the arts, the performing arts, music specifically, has a big responsibility. And in my case, it's just quite symbolic. It's just because of Zan Zendegi Azadi and me having the honor of collaborating with Sara Naini, whose voice was suppressed in Iran for so many years, and being able to enable her to bring her voice out, and her singing voice in this case, but still, is just so symbolic for me. And so our concert is not as happy as it used to be, but it's appropriate, and it's cathartic, and I'm very blessed to, especially in these difficult times, to be with those people who share my passion with music, and to stand next to our brothers and sisters who are fighting for freedom.
Dariush has a gig here the same night, and he there's artists that I don't know the ins and outs. I don't go trolling through the internet to see who's saying something about Dariush or not, but it does seem like for some artists there's an expectation, while we know that his concert is not going to be dancing and singing and all of that in the way that would we would find offensive, but for Saucy it's something else. Does it hurt you when somebody says, "Why are you playing this concert?" Do you feel has that been difficult for you emotionally?
Well, honestly, it is basically not because of myself, but again because as a musician, as a proud musician, I'm actually just quite offended by how they interpret the terminology at the concert. But so just for the record, so our performance is going to be very, very, very much comparable to Dariush's. So, and less so to Saucy. By the way, I respect him, Saucy, as an artist, and I also feel for him. I think even his performances should not have been silenced. Although I probably, it's not the kind of music that I would right now listen to, I still think that people should have a right, and it's a quite symbolic gesture to about freedom, to for them to be able to pursue however taste they have. And I'm saddened by actually his concert being cancelled and being in the headlines. But so we are extremely respectful of the current situation.
You certainly understand that some people are not going to want to. Some people say, I don't have the desire to go out right now. I don't have the desire to, specifically with something like Saucy, you understand why some people don't feel
absolutely
like
that is part of the freedom. What I don't understand is why you would create an atmosphere of shame where other people would not dare to pursue their own freedom.
Can I bring this down to actually, Shai, first you were nodding. So I should let you say something.
I agree with all the thing that Reza said, and also I understand that some people say that they don't have hosele in these days to go to a happy concert, but also
or a mehmuni,
but also I've seen people that they say, and I don't go to a Saucy concert, but they go to a non-Iranian concert.
I was just gonna say that,
which is
right,
it's like
they go cheer the Maple Leafs at the hockey game.
Can I actually add to that? Because at the onset of this revolution, I actually went to a Monolink concert. It was during the first week or so that this was happening, and Monolink made a shout out to what was going on in Iran, and this was super early on, and everyone was very impressed, and I can easily say 70% of the population at that concert was Iranians. He has a very large Iranian following, and not one person said anything about, this should have been cancelled, or
nobody has said Roger Waters shouldn't be playing. They cheered that Roger Waters mentioned Mahsa.
And we understand the use of a platform when someone like Roger Waters, Monolink, or any other non-Iranian artist uses it to shed more light on what's happening. But then within our own community, it's this immediate, oh no, it's shaming and you shouldn't.
Yeah, but hang on a second, guys. I mean, are you really saying that don't you think that Iranians have a different responsibility for what's going on in Iran than, even amongst your friends? Do you really hold your Canadian friend who's never done anything to do with Iran and doesn't know, other than knowing you, has no connection to Iran. Do you really hold them to the same standard as an Iranian friend of yours in terms of a responsibility to be speaking out or doing something to support the people of Iran right now?
No, but I think that's different. I think that's, those are my friends. They're not individuals who have large platforms, right? I think anyone who has a large platform, and we've talked about this, we've said, why isn't so-and-so influencer posting about what's happening in Iran? Or why isn't the media covering
sort
Iran,
of, but I don't feel like Lionel Messi is Amnesty International. Like I don't like I'm not offended that he's not spending every moment of the day talking about Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. He's a football player. He'll talk about something to do with whatever he wants.
Right.
But I would assume if there was a people's revolution in Argentina,
that
Messi would need to say something, and if he didn't, it'd be weird.
No,
right?
and I agree with you. But what I'm saying is why, and I think I echo what Reza was saying, that why the shame, right? Why not look at this as a platform? And if someone is choosing to use their platform to, change their concert or change their play or whatever it is that they're doing, whatever platform they have, and still reflect on what's happening, why don't we allow them to do that instead of shaming them? And I get it. Yes, maybe the example of Sassi, because, that's what we're referring to, that type of music doesn't have a space right now. But even someone like Sassi, who has thousands upon thousands of fans, he has a platform. Why don't we let him use that platform?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also, I'm talking about people. If you are sad that you cannot come to, let's say, Dangsho concert, which is not happy concert. If you are sad you're not going to Dangsho concert, probably you have to be sad and not going to a Coldplay concert.
Please maintain your sadness across the board, not just for Iranian concerts.
Yes.
But listen, I was going to say, on a much more micro level, I'm sure you guys have experienced this, but I have friends in social media, and again, let's carve out the non-Iranian friends, which many of my non-Iranian friends, as I say, are not spending a lot of time on Iran. That can irritate me. I can reach out to them and go, hey, come on, let me. But in terms of, some Iranian friends that I have, friends, people on social media that we follow each other or something. I have felt, I've been in the situation recently where, there's one person in particular I can think of who, I'm not sure if she said anything about the revolution from day one, but she is consistently posting pictures of just going out to restaurants in a fancy dress and things like that. And, to kind of take this as a metaphor, I'm faced with the question of, do I say something to her? Do I say, excuse me, come on,
right.
Or do I just kind of go, I don't feel comfortable looking at this right now. It makes me feel like disheartened that somebody's not part of supporting or something. So for now, I'm just going to mute this person or not look at their or unfollow or whatever. That seems to be the issue, and I'm not sure what the answer is. I'm not sure if I'm shirking my responsibility by not calling the person up and going, excuse me, why are you wearing a nice dress and going out every night? I don't know, but that feels like a metaphor for everything, which is we know. Reza, you were saying earlier, everyone needs to be on side for this revolution to be effective, right? Doesn't that then lead to you wanting everybody to play a role somehow?
Yes, yeah, and especially myself. So and this is what I do. So I think there is a issue with the terminology as well. So this bringing awareness or celebrating and supporting a movement continuously. So I think bringing awareness might be the responsibility for the first time, or in this case for Iranians, they are already all aware of, even we were talking about at the beginning of the show about every single clip that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's not about awareness, but should I just am I a news agency to announce that this is happening and then just shut up for the rest? What I do is art. and I do it continuously. And again, I reflect what's happening on the streets, and I mean, you guys will be able to judge for yourselves, hopefully. But yeah, so basically, why is there no doubt in anybody's mind that a Dariush concert is okay?
Right.
At this time,
because he's Gamgin.
Well, there you go. Okay, I do understand that. Yeah. So I think he has one shot song. But
so everybody's like, okay, I'll buy tickets, we'll go and cry.
Exactly. Yeah. So first of all, I do get it that the current situation is sad, but I don't agree that this is the only emotion that we should go for.
No, but let me make it more specific, because I am glad that you're playing. I would go to the Dariush concert. I would go to the Dang Show concert, because I know these are places where the revolution is being addressed, and that they can actually be places where people can feel cathartic and feel inspired to be in a group setting. So I support that. What if I come to your concert and you say nothing about the revolution and you just play happy Billy Joel songs?
That won't happen.
No. Of course it won't happen. But what if? I mean, that's the question, right? Do you still reserve the right for somebody to do that, or do you feel like Iranian artists should have a responsibility to do something within their works or their concerts or their performances or that reflects the mood?
Before I think about other people's responsibilities, I think about my own responsibility to be aware constantly of the fact that other people's freedom of choice might not be, my taste. It would not, in my opinion, would not be tasteful if somebody did perform and didn't reflect on what's happening in Iran right now. If an Iranian artist did that, it would not be my taste. But it would be much more imperative in my mind that he is free to do what he chooses to do, and that his supporters should not be shamed for supporting him in what he does. Basically, I think it is not about inclusivity. So the shame is more about excluding people. So you're by shaming them, you're not inviting them into this movement. You're just like excluding them. But if you want to include them, you should probably find a way to have them have their performance and mention and react to what's going on the streets.
I strongly disagree with the shaming, that's for sure. I mean, I've said that since day one of this revolution, how much I don't agree with that. But I also strongly believe that Iranians right now have a responsibility to use their platform. So although, I believe in the freedom of choice and things like that, in this current circumstance, I think if you're an Iranian artist, celebrity, influencer, whatever your platform is, you have a duty and responsibility to
It's not a hypothetical question.
Yeah.
People were being shot at in a subway yesterday. So if that is the thing, right? That's whether it's the person on my Instagram who isn't saying anything, or whether it's the person who does a concert hypothetically and says nothing, and that is an issue. For me, it's an issue.
It is for me as well. And I think going back to what we were talking about a little while ago with Bill Clinton and that video message and things like that, I think the importance of the awareness piece is huge. I mean, we even have the slogans of keep eyes on Iran and make sure that we continue the conversation, and we talk about not being lost in the midst of, other things that are happening, whether it's the World Cup or whatever else. And that's the way to do it, is to continue to use our platforms as Iranians and to bring the awareness to non-Iranians so that they can use their platforms as well. So I think the most important thing right now is actually, if you have a platform, to use it.
Are you still happy you came today, or are you?
I'm very happy. I'm very happy. Honestly, this has been like, heavy weight, a heavy burden on my heart, and I'm really, really glad for the opportunity to be able to talk about it.
I really appreciate that you, not that you've said anything particularly outlandish, but that you come here and give your honest thoughts rather than saying the things that the parroting the things that might be the most popular things to say, including your nuanced position on the World Cup. I will see you guys after the Iran-USA game and see who's celebrating and who isn't. I mean, I really don't know. I really don't know how it's going to play out. It's going to be very, very, very interesting.
Yes.
But I have to have faith that collectively we're going to figure some way out of doing this. Because it's like I said on the Monday essay. No one wants to cheer a goal scorer who's a pro-regime goal scorer right now who's cheering for that. I mean, it would feel kind of hard for me to cheer that, and at the same time, we've talked about how many times have we talked about the one joyous occasion for Iranians in the last 43 years has been the possibility of the World Cup and getting into a World Cup and then scoring, and I mean, so it's such a clash of ideas that and a tangle that's typical. But they burned the banner of the Iranian national football team in Tehran.
Yeah.
That was shocking.
That's not the diaspora deciding to go to the World Cup or not. That's Iranians inside Iran who are fucking angry, right? Reza Rohani, thank you, brother. Nice to see you here. Thanks to have you nice to have you in the studio.
My pleasure.
Looking forward to seeing you make your music.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Pega. Thank you, Shaya.
Thank you.
Let's get to our guests who are in Iran for this special episode of Voices Inside Iran. Let's go to Shiraz first. This is an artist, a young woman who is an artist and who we actually had on the show once before. And she has been very active in the protests, and she is courageous enough and forward enough to want to use her real name. So this is Behgol in Shiraz. Behgol, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Hi. How's your dog?
My dog is fine, actually. I was begging him not to bark right now.
I remember it was so memorable the last time we spoke. I said, what's your goal in a free Iran? And you talked about walking your dog with all kinds of freedom. Behgol,
I still talk to my dog about it. I tell him I'm going to take him everywhere.
Well, you've promised him the revolution now. You've got to make it happen.
He's waiting.
Tell me what it's been like. We've seen the footage of demonstrations and strikes across Iran in the last 3 days because of the anniversary of Aban. Have you been involved in them in Shiraz? And what have you seen? What can you tell us?
This is amazing. These whole days I was waiting for Shiraz to be louder, to be bigger. And, I know how my people are. I wanted them to be how they are, but they weren't these past days. But these 3 days, they were magnificent. They were all out, all my friends. Oh my God, you can't even imagine how I feel right now. I'm really proud to all my friends, and they're all out there. It's the last days. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's finally the last days.
What do you mean the last days?
I mean, entire country is crowded. For example, imagine a little town in Fars that in this 44 years, it haven't been any protest. For 44 years, no protest. But last week, it was crowded. You see how I mean? Everywhere, every little city, every little group, they are understanding this. They are coming with us. They are taking our hands and coming in the streets.
Behgol,
Everybody.
what's the mood like? What has it been like in Shiraz? I mean, obviously we're aware of this severe, brutal crackdown by the regime and these edicts about wanting to execute protesters and all of that kind of thing. Yet you guys are still going out there. What's the mood like?
They are doing this and they think they are protecting themselves with doing this. But they are only making us angrier. They are only helping us, somehow they're helping us. We are being more. We're becoming more. The first days, we haven't been this much. But they are still killing us. And this is helping us get our crowd bigger. They are killing themselves by doing everything they are doing. They are helping us, kind of. They are getting us angrier. They are getting us braver. The first days I was a little afraid, a little, tiny little afraid. But these days I'm not afraid at all. And all my friends, they are not afraid at all.
So even when you see a 10-year-old boy being murdered, or the pictures from the Tehran subway of people being shot at, these things don't scare you at this point.
It scared me. It breaks my heart in tiny little pieces. But now my body don't get upset. My body get angry. My mind, I can't cry for them. I get angry for them. I need to get revenge to get calm, I can't get calm until I get revenge.
What have you faced? What have you faced in Shiraz? Sorry, go ahead.
This is it. I think this is how a lot of people feel. They are not getting, even their own family. You see how his father was?
Yeah.
He was not crying. He was shouting for his blood, for his son's blood.
Yeah.
And this is how all of us should be.
Behgol, what have you noticed in the response of the regime in the streets of Shiraz? I mean, in terms of Basij, in terms of police, in terms of military, what were you facing the last 2 or 3 days?
I think they're dying. They're really tired. They are really tired. When you look at them, you can see it. But I don't know, last time you told me, what do you call lebas shakhsi?
Plainclothes militia.
Yep, they are so much more. They are even more than the polices. Even the people who arrested us, there was these kind of people. They were not polices. And this is totally Adam Robai. I don't know what we call this, but this is Adam Robai. This is actually Adam Robai.
And
they are doing this, and I think they don't know what is going on exactly, because their leaders, they are all running away and they are still hitting us in the street. I think they don't know what is going on exactly.
Can I ask you a stupid question? What might be a stupid question? Can you tell when somebody's a plainclothes militia, Basij? Can you tell them? You tell who they are when you're in a protest?
Yeah, they wear clothes like us. They wear clothes like normal people, but they have a huge stomach. Huge stomach, and they have ugly faces. You look at them and you understand immediately that these ugly faces are them, and they try to fit between us. Sometimes they can do this, they can fit and we can understand, that is bad. But sometimes, a lot of times, we can recognize them that they are not with us. They have guns and they have every kind of power. They kill people and they don't answer for that. But one day they have to.
Have you had friends of yours arrested, detained, injured? What have you witnessed?
Yes, last week, this exact time and day, me and my friends were in south of Iran, and we were arrested with these people, these morality people, polices who don't wear their forms. I can't memorize the name.
Plain
It's so
clothes.
hard.
Think about clothes, like the clothes you wear, and add the word plain, like the normal plain clothes. Plain clothes.
Okay,
Yeah.
don't think it. About 12, 13 people surrounded our car with their guns, and they arrested my friend. They took all of us, and in the end of the night, they arrested one of my friends only. And they searched the entire house. They took her laptop, our cell phones, and we don't know where she is.
Oh my God.
This whole don't know where she is, and we are being watched. All of us that we are not arrested, the rest of the people, we are being watched, and this is a little bit hard, but it shall pass.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty scary. You're
Yeah, it was really scary, but you know what is more scary? I am scarily brave after this. I am dangerously brave after this happening. I don't know if
you
if
really
it's good
are.
or
You really
bad.
are. I mean, even talking to us and using your real name, and you're very you know you're facing it, and you're very courageous.
This is what I have to do right now. This is the least I can do right now for my friends, my sisters, and brothers in jail. This is the least I can do to be their voice.
Behgol, what have you noticed in Shiraz in terms of businesses that were closing or striking over the last few days? There's been a great hope that would be the next step to building this revolution. What did you see?
It was really a big step, and uh, I think 95% of the stores were closed today and the last 2 days, and mostly the supermarkets was open, and the stores that were open, they were all serving the regime, and they were somehow connected to the regime.
Hmm.
But 95% of the stores were closed, and this was good. This was really nice to see. The city was empty, just people, just the crowd and the cars and the police.
I'm assuming when you go out on the streets in Shiraz, you don't wear a hijab anymore.
Of course I don't. I was not wearing a hijab for almost 2 or 3 years. I was fighting alone, but these days, of course, I don't wear hijab.
And no one says anything to you.
Sometimes they do, and I fight back because I'm not that kind of person who can keep my mouth shut. I fight back and I leave them alone with their empty mind.
Can I ask? I mean, you're you're remarkable because you've been arrested. You're being watched. It's a desperate situation in some ways in Iran, but you sound quite upbeat. Actually, I mean, people here in Toronto on the other side of the world are crying about the situation, but you sound very strong and positive. How do you stay that way?
Now I can see the bright future. I can see the lights in my future. I can see the lights of my country's future. This is so close to the victory. So closer than the last time we talked. Last time I said it too. I said it is so close. But now I say it's so closer. And this is giving me hope. I'm having hope to see my friend's face again. I need to see her again. And for her freedom, I have to fight. I can't sit down. They are my sisters. They are my friends. They are my brothers. I have to fight.
It's always enlightening and educational and energizing getting to talk to you. I really hope you stay safe, and I really hope you continue to be able to have the strength that you have. Thanks so much for doing this, and hopefully we can talk again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you for talking to me. It was an honor.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.
This is Roqe, episode 216, The Uprising. Voices from Inside Iran, number 6. I'm jianghomeshi. For all things Roqe related, you can go to our website, roqemedia.com, for all back episodes, including all the episodes from this series on The Uprising, roqemedia.com. Let's go to Tehran next, and a filmmaker and musician, and somebody actually who we've had on the show as part of this series as well a few weeks back. His name is Som. That is his real name. He also feels comfortable using his real name. He is in Tehran. I think he's just come from a protest. Som, are you there?
Yeah. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm good.
All right. Listen, I mean, we've been seeing the footage of demonstrations and fires and strikes across Iran in the last 3 days, marking the anniversary of the Alban massacre. What have you experienced in the last day or two?
All 3 days that were like supposed to be very good in terms of people being in the streets were even better than I thought it would be. People in almost every neighborhood in Tehran were out there. I went to a couple of different neighborhoods, but everywhere you go, it was amazing. Yeah.
Has the tone and the composition somehow of these protests changed from what you would have seen 2 months ago when we first started talking to you?
I think yes. I'm not sure if it's like because of the time that has passed or because of like these 3 days that were like especially important, or also like the neighborhoods that I went to like these 3 days, like towards west of Tehran. I didn't used to go to these neighborhoods, so maybe also that's a factor, but there were much more like families there. Like,
wow,
it wasn't just young people, and it helped. I mean, in one of the neighborhoods, like in Gisha, that was one of the, I think, key things that made it work, because there were like not just under 30 people, there were also like 40, 50, 60-year-old parents, and you could tell that like there are families, and it was much easier for people to, like 50 people start chanting and shouting and protesting, and like as soon as the guards were showing up, they would just start walking normally in the street, and it was much easier for people to just look like normal people, because it was just of all ages, not just a couple of young people.
I mean, it is quite remarkable, given the saber rattling, the threats of the regime. This this dictate that was passed in the Majlis to recommend to the judiciary to execute people, with the backdrop of all of that, to see these demonstrations all over Iran.
I think that had no effect whatsoever. Like, nothing changed in terms of people being scared of, because I think people already knew what they are capable of. So it wasn't a surprise in that sense.
Yeah.
It may have been a surprise in the sense that they're usually not that this blatant about
Yes.
what they're
Yes.
capable of doing. But in terms of what they are capable of doing, people already know that. People already have experienced Aubon 3 years ago. So I think, yeah, that changed nothing.
It's
Their new,
interesting. I mean, it's a point of great outrage for the rest of the world and for those of us outside of Iran. But you're quite right.
yeah,
If you're in Iran and you've been dealing with this for years, and especially if you've been protesting before, you already know all this stuff, right? You don't feel like it's
yeah.
more. You don't feel like it's more. I mean, a regime on its last legs, lashing out in a more brutal way this time.
Um, yeah, I think the number of, I think, um, I don't think it has become more brutal since they said that stuff. But yeah, definitely these protests, like these last 50, 60 days, their crackdown has been much more brutal than, uh, not than 98, like 3 years ago, but every protest before that. I remember in 88, which is 2009, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for those protests, the reason people could like gather was because the crackdowns were mostly just batons, and then they introduced paintballs like much later, months later, and as at least in Tehran, they never actually used pellet guns um, back then,
Yeah.
but now it's just their most common thing to do, and they don't just use pellet guns on like protesters. Whenever like a street is there are protests in a
Yeah.
street,
Yeah.
even if they see like two, three people that they
Yeah.
don't like, they would just shoot pellet
or
guns. So
or live ammunition. But some, I mean, there also there's no I was saying this a few minutes ago on the show, but there's no pretense anymore either. There's no postulate of pretense. In other words, they're not even pretending to have a reason. In the early days of even this revolution, this movement, there would be this kind of attitude of, well, they threw rocks at us, so now we're shooting. I mean, this incident yesterday in the subway, I mean, there's absolutely nothing other than just sheer terrorizing brutality. We're going to walk in with guns and start shooting, right?
yeah, especially Basij. I mean, you can see all degrees of violence in all of them, but in general, the guards, the ones that have actual like anti-protest wearing gears, um, they're usually less brutal and more rational in terms of when they attack than the Basij and the secret police. And what has been changing, at least in Tehran, is more and more of we see more and more of them, more and more of Basij, uh, as opposed to the guards with the gears and all that.
And why do you think that
And
is?
um, I think because they think for some reason that it's more okay if the Basij and the people who are not wearing like actual gear are very violent, and they are the most violent. They're the ones that like there's no limit to their violence. They
Right.
can just you can see them like 10 of them just kicking and beating the shit out of like a 15-year-old,
Yeah.
and it's like there's no limit for them, and yeah, they're the worst. Yeah.
Is it fair to say, Sam, that I don't want to romanticize this because obviously it's been very difficult for you guys, but is it fair to say that the internet crackdown this time has not really worked? Because there's been a lot more deft kind of ability of young Iranians to find VPNs or find ways around this to keep the information flowing?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a combination of this, because this time people were prepared, and like at any moment all of us are prepared for like next moves. Like we all have like 10 VPNs that we haven't even used yet, and we're waiting for the old ones to stop working, and then we'll try the new one. But I think it's also that this time they have not cracked it down like they did 3 years ago, um, that much. Sometimes they do, but even the times that they do, it's not both cellular and the Wi-Fi providers. It's one of them usually. Um, as far as I know, it's because a lot of their own businesses run on the internet, and um, they don't want to. I mean,
Right.
it's a
Right.
lot of loss for them to do that. But yeah, it's a combination of both, I think.
What's your perspective on businesses closing, being shuttered, going on strike? Is this something significant in terms of a shift to the next level for the movement, or was this simply a commemoration of Aban and it's back to business as usual after this?
Um, I think I think it depends from business to business. There's a lot of businesses that their strike might not even affect the government that much. I know a lot of people whose business, they're like doing their own thing. They're not that connected to uh, our economy per se, and they even didn't work these 3 days. And yeah, that was kind of a symbolic gesture. But I think bigger industries like Zobahan in Isfahan, yeah, those ones are, I think, the most important ones, and those are the ones that might be permanent. A lot of them happened even before these 3 days. So um, I think those are the ones that government cares about, and I think that's the most important next step that needs to happen uh, for this whole uprising to work.
A final question before I let you go. Tell me about, from a personal perspective, how you keep going with the I mean, I'm glad to hear. Well, actually, I don't know in the interim since we last spoke to you if you've been arrested or had any issues yourself, but whether you have or not, you seem to be charging forward and using your real name and doing interviews like this. Tell me from a personal perspective about your decision to keep going.
Um, I think the biggest thing is that there's really no turning back. The government has not left any um, possibility for turning back, and I think most people know that. Um, and yeah, I mean, days like this, like today, yesterday, the day before, they actually um, do give us the fuels to keep going, because like we see a lot of other people in the streets, like really making the guards and the anti-protesters um, completely helpless. They're not able to control like just one street. Like they go up the street to shut like one protest down, and then just 50 meters or 100 meters uh, below, another group of people start chanting, and it's like seeing this actually gives us fuel to keep going. The days that like these don't happen, or like it happens but like they are able to control the streets, or they are able to or they are like showing their brutality in like killing people, those days, yeah, it's sad, and it's more difficult to keep going. But I think the last 3 days, at least in Tehran, it was really good.
I hope you take care of yourself. It's always
Thank you.
really good to talk to you, and thanks for making the time. Be safe, okay?
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This dream I'm dreaming, won't you wake me up tonight? 'Cause this life I'm living
This is Roqe, episode 216, The Uprising, the Voices from Inside Iran series. And let's stay in Tehran right now. And on the line, we've got a woman who has 2 master's degrees in engineering and management. She has been very active in the protest movement in Iran. For the purposes of protecting her identity, we have agreed to call her Sonia in this interview. Sonia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, in fact, to calling me.
Well, I mean, it's really helpful for us and important and brave of you to speak out and do what you're doing in Iran, but also to help us spread the word around the world in English. Sonia, obviously we've been seeing the footage of demonstrations and strikes across Iran in the last 3 days, marking the anniversary of the Aban massacre. What can you tell us about what you have experienced in the last day or two?
It was actually very interesting, or I can say that I didn't expect it to be that much widespread. Because like normally in a lot of cities there are strikes, but in Tehran or protests, and it has continued for all these. I think that it's about 60 days, if I'm not wrong. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that in Tehran, it was like becoming mostly, these protests have been done mostly in the university or near the universities. And we expected much more, but people are somehow, because of all these murders in Iran or these killings, they prefer to do other type of protests, like being active in media or Instagram posts and la la la. But this struck in the last 3 or 2 days, and tomorrow is going to be next day, if I'm right. Yes, when we go to the streets, like 90% of all the stores are closed, and this actually send us a good message that we are all together, and those groups of people who are supporting this brutal regime are just a few percentage. Their percentage is so little, and yeah, it was actually good way or good tool to realize that how many percentage of us are together and are against this brutal oppressive regime.
This might seem like a stupid question, but is it clear when the stores are closed that they're closed because they're supporting the strikes and the protests?
Yes, for sure, because there are like a few percentage of them that are open and they don't care because they are like supporter of the regime. But those who are closed, obviously they are against them. Otherwise, because they have like send them a lot of messages that if you close and if you strike, we'll like send you give you penalties or like some other consequences it will have. But they didn't care, and they just closed.
And these business closures that you were seeing, they were not just in the bazaar that we heard about, but in other places in Tehran.
No, it's actually all the streets.
Amazing.
Almost all the streets. Yes, and mostly they're just like, I can say that like these grocery stores are open, and even not that many of supermarkets, but grocery stores, and it's because they have these vegetables that will be rotten, and people also need to eat somehow. But a lot of them accept just cash money. They don't accept money, or they say that just pay like after strike. So they can also not let any transaction happen in their pods, in the bank system. That's a good sign also, because the main goal was that not having any transaction in these 3 days.
It's a huge sign, because from the very beginning, this has been something that academics and people who've studied revolutions have said, well, it's really only going to be picking up true momentum when we see strikes and when we see businesses and workers come on side. And so this is a big event in terms of what's happened in the last 2 or 3 days. Surely
exactly, because like people were protesting and they continued, and we continued for like 40 days. Somehow it was like a lot of protests. But then if these strikes wouldn't join, then people would have lost their hope that not everyone is with them. But now we can see that like a lot of people, majority of the people are with us.
You talked about murders. There's been a severe and brutal crackdown by the regime on all protests and protesters. What has the mood been like amongst those you've been demonstrating with in the last few days? I mean, is there fear? Is there trepidation? Is there more reservation than you would have had a month or two ago?
For some, which they have been arrested, yeah. But for those who haven't been arrested yet, no, they are going strong, and they're not afraid of. Like, I've been arrested, but I was fortunate that because it was the first 3 days of demonstration, protest, they just like cut me. They put cuffing on my hands, and they said that they would take me to the jail. And I was like, oh my God, jail, and my mother. And like, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna be in prison. I don't know for how long. And I'm like, other nationality passport holder, so I was afraid that also I would be forbidden to get out of it, or they would take my passport and la la. But fortunately, I don't know what happened between all these people that they've been caught. Like, someone just helped me there, and he just checked everything in my mobile. And even I had movies on my mobile. They said that, okay, delete all these and la la la. And then after like 1 hour, they said that, okay, we'll let you go. And they didn't check my Instagram because I had a lot of like posts insulting the government and everyone, and even I don't know, I shouldn't maybe probably say that on the radio. But yeah, so if they were like checking my Instagram, for sure they wouldn't have let me go away. But then suddenly they just said that, okay, we just write down everything, all the information they took from me, my ID number, my telephone, la la la. And after 1 hour, they let me go. But the thing is that the day after, I woke up in the morning and I saw a message on my WhatsApp, which was a number sending from a number which was started from +7 something. And I thought that one of my friends from like outside has no, because I put my bruises because I got beaten by the police, by this riot police and people, this Basij and those people. So I had bruises on my body, and I put my photos on my Instagram. And so the day after, like in the morning, I woke up and I saw these messages from this unknown number, and I thought that one of my friends from somewhere in the world has. When I was like thinking that which country is +7 something, la la la. And then I saw the message, and it was like, oh, hi, how are you? Did you reach home safe? And I was like, who are you? And then he said that, you forgot who released you yesterday. And I was like shocked, and I just blocked the number, and I also took off my number, and I haven't used it until now. I'm using another mobile number because I'm afraid if I put my number and I get a message from this guy from the this riot police, I don't know what would be the reaction or what would be the talk. So I was afraid. I just like turned off my number.
Let me just unpack a little bit of what you've just said, because you're so strong and brave. You say these things matter-of-factly, that you were arrested, you were beaten, you were injured, and these are things that are in contravention to human rights laws, international human rights laws. It's horrific to hear. So can you just tell me, I mean, when you say the riot police beat you, was that at the protest, or was this when you're taken to detention, when you're arrested?
No, it was like when I was protesting with a group, and then they were like running after us, and then they cut me. And it was at the beginning of the protest, so I had my mobile with me. I thought that I want to make videos or films, and I want to send it to others, or put put in my Instagram, so everyone, to spread and broadcast whatever I have.
Yes.
And they told me that, it was a mistake. You shouldn't have taken your mobile with you, or at least the mobile I had these videos on.
But why are you not? It's amazing. You suggested a few minutes ago. You said you have an international passport. I happen to know you spent some time in Germany, so you have a non-Iranian passport as well. So you would easily be able to go somewhere else in the world right now. But you choose to stay in Iran, you choose to stay in Tehran, and you choose to actually continue going out on the streets.
I actually moved out before these protests. Like in May, I moved out to start my life outside, because I thought that, okay, Iran has nothing for me anymore. I mean, I cannot continue like this, like more, because and then I just moved back to take some of my stuff, and I had some errands to also do in like 2-3 weeks, and then the protest started. So I postponed my actually leaving, and I said that I want to stay, I want to do the protest, I want to help, and I want to be in the middle of this most probably revolution. I hope that we can get results, and I didn't want to just be away.
So is there anything that this regime can do in terms of their fear tactics that would stop you from demonstrating?
Yeah, for sure. I think that this regime will not stop killing people. They don't care.
But that hasn't stopped you.
They're just the enemies.
It hasn't stopped you. I'm saying, is there anything that, they've basically done everything they possibly could to make someone like you, afraid to get out on the streets, and yet you're still going out there, right? So, I'm saying, Is there anything that they could do? In other words, they don't seem to be very effective if that's what their goal is, to stop people from demonstrating. It doesn't seem to be happening, does it?
No, not that much. No, people are now very, very tired of all this, everything. Like me, maybe from hijab and human rights and not democracy existing, but even there are these Muslim people who are believing in. I can say that if you're Muslim, you're not believing in human rights, because the basic of Islam is that women and men are not equal. So there is no human rights in this religion. And even those people who are believing in Islam, many of them, or a percentage of them, big percentage of them, are now against the regime because of the economic situation, or even political situation.
Yes.
I don't know what is the reason for everyone, but even I'm saying that we might think that Muslims in Iran, those who are believing in Islam, they support them.
Yes.
But I can say that not all of them.
From Tehran to Tabriz to Sanandaj to Zahedan, there's different demographics and different people, and they're all out on the streets. I think the point you're making is an important one.
Yeah, everyone has a reason, because this regime, in none of the area has done something positive or good. Everything has been just corrupted.
Did you see? I'm guessing, on the basis of the fact that we found you and that you sound like you're connected. You are, despite internet crackdowns, getting information and finding out what's happening across the country in Iran and around the world. So you would have seen those horrific videos yesterday of the subway, of the metro, where people were getting shot at from regime thugs in the subway.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you know anything more about that?
No, unfortunately, it's just about all I have, all this information I have from the videos. But anyway, metros nowadays are very unsafe, because they are full of guardians. These riot people, and it's not safe at all.
Yeah. What is your sense, if you can tell us before I let you go, Sonia, what is your sense of, I mean, just in terms of your feeling, you're seeing these people, these police, these Basij, these military out on the streets. What is your feeling about the strength of this regime at this point, and how long? I mean, it's usually framed as how long can the protesters keep this going, but I would say, how long do you think the regime can keep cracking down before it wears itself out?
Fortunately, because of the support of international societies, because of the support of the West, I mean, they're backing Iranian people against the regime. And because of all these efforts that they did in the last, at least the severe sanctions that they had during the last 10 years, because we have to repeat it again, they had this chance in 1388, a green movement in Iran, to support Iranian people to not let this regime continue longer, but they didn't.
Yes.
They had their own reason. We don't know what. But unfortunately, we didn't have that support. So although after like several months, the protest just like slept and finished, and the regime continued. But because of the severe sanctions that they put on Iran for the last several years, economically, the regime is weakened. And that's because Iran, everyone knows that it's a rich country. There are lots of oil money in the hand of the government. So they have all the facilities to even hire people from around the countries to just oppress their people. And they have money to spend on those matters. But fortunately, because of the last several years of not being able to sell their oil easily or that much, so they don't have that much money anymore. And that actually made them weaken. And that's the help of international, West.
Can I ask you on that note, again, before I let you go, there's a debate that happens here being outside of Iran, in the Iranian global community, and even with some non-Iranians, around whether our supporting you guys in Iran, it makes a difference. I mean, I literally had this debate 3 or 4 nights ago with a guy who was saying, well, why are you doing all this? What difference does it make? You're sitting in Toronto saying these things. But that's not what we've heard from people inside Iran who say it does make a difference. In terms of your perspective and those your sisters and brothers who are out on the protests and people you talk to in Iran, does it make a difference to you when you hear about big demonstrations in Toronto or Berlin, when you see programs like ours talking about this, when you see celebrities saying these things, when you see Iranians outside of Iran standing up for Iranians inside Iran? Does that actually make a difference to you guys inside?
For sure. It's actually make a huge difference if we are not being heard on through the word, and if like people or countries around the world are not supporting Iranian people, and they are not also helping us or weaken our government to not cooperate with them economically. It is actually a big help. I don't know how they can do bigger help for us. I mean, we cannot expect them to come to Iran and fight for us. This is the maximum thing I think that they can do, and they are doing.
Sonia, I thank you so much for taking the time. Stay strong, and I hope you stay safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you for dedicating this time to me, to speak with you and on the air, and maybe some people can hear me as well.
Khudafiz.
Khudafiz.
This is a special edition of Roqe, episode 216, Voices from Inside Iran, the 6th edition of this special Thursday Voices from Inside Iran series. I want to go to Kashan now, and a woman who has been very active in the protest movement and was in hiding, avoiding authorities who were searching for her the last time we spoke. For the purposes of protecting her identity, we call her Homa. Homa, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, Jian.
Hi, it's good to talk to you again. First of all, I think the last time I talked to you, you were in Karaj or Tehran. You're now in Kashan?
Yes, I am in Kashan now. The last time I was in Tehran, but yes, currently I am in Kashan.
And I mean, I guess the obvious question, I know Kashan tends to be a more religious place. With all the strikes and the activity that's been happening the last 3 days on the commemorative anniversary of Aban, and with people out in the streets, have you seen that kind of activity in Kashan?
No, in these past 3 days, no, but me and my friend that we are staying in a house, we just participated, like, we didn't have any bank transaction, we didn't buy anything, and yes, but just today that I was going out for the first time, because it's been 2 weeks that I'm here now, but I didn't go out of the house. But today I went out and I thought, okay, should I wear my scarf, because I'm new to the city, it's a religious city, but I thought that, okay, no, it's a short distance, so I wouldn't wear my scarf. And as I was walking by, a motorcycle came and grabbed some part of my body. And as I was shouting and cursing, the guy turned back and looked at me. And I realized that time that it wasn't that kind of moves that the guy wanted just to assault and it was out of lust or something. He just looked at me and in a way that, okay, this is what you get if you don't want to wear hijab or you want to protest in some way. And but not the thing, but one of the things that struck me was one of my friends that was with me. She told the guy that was just standing by there. She told her that, okay, it's part of this revolution that you have to act something, that when you see this kind of stuff, you shouldn't just it's not the cinema that you just see somebody assault somebody else and just stand there and see. And the guy, he was a teenager actually, but he said, I'm sorry, and realized that he was just seeing, like practically seeing a point of view other than seeing some things in social media. He was just experiencing, okay, this is my role. This can be my role now. It's not that I post story or on Instagram or something. When these kind of things happen, I should participate. I should help. I should make the streets safe for women and people. And but just besides this unfortunate incident, I wasn't out actually.
He came and he came and on his motorcycle and touched you. But his point was to warn you to be careful. Is that what you're saying?
Not to be careful. No. He wanted to say that if you don't wear hijab, this is what you're gonna.
I see.
This is what you're gonna get. So don't play this game, city.
Yeah,
I
guess it's needless to say. I'm imagining that it's harder to go out on the streets without hijab or act out in Kashan than it would be in Tehran, right?
Yes, because right now, for example, in Tehran, even when you go to restaurants or cafes, there are a lot of restaurants or cafes that waitresses or people who work there, they don't wear hijab at all, not like under their shoulder. And their manager, the owner of the restaurant, are supportive of it. But since I was here, I went to this cafe that a girl was without hijab, and I was telling my friend that she's very courageous, and that's very amazing that in cafes in Kashan they don't wear. And she says, yes, but for her, most of the time the cafe is locked, the police comes, but as much as the owner wants to be supportive of her, but it happened more frequently than Tehran. In Tehran, I don't know, in my view, the places that I've been, right now it's like some of the restaurants have uniforms for women like who work there, like without manto or without hijab, and but
That's
it's
amazing.
really a matter of how supportive, the owner is.
Amazing how the ground has shifted. You yourself are still kind of in hiding. Is it because I mean, the last time we spoke to you, a couple of your friends had been rounded up, and that the authorities were going door to door trying to find you. What happened? Are your friends still in detention, or did they get out of jail, or what's the latest you can tell me about what happened with you guys?
My friend got released after the day Evin prison was on fire. Due to that, they released some people, a lot of people. And fortunately, my friend was one of them, and we went to by the door of Evin prison, and she got released. And after that, when two of them got released, I activated my phone again. No, I'm not in hiding. Actually, the reason that I'm in Kashan is that I had so many panic attacks in Tehran, so I thought that I should move away.
Go somewhere calmer. Why were you having panic attacks in Tehran?
Because my house is very close to the street that most of the revolution's happening, and there were so many cars horning, shouting, and as well, I participated, but I realized that all the time I have panic attacks, and even if I'm in house, it's like I'm hearing the voices, and I thought that okay, for 1 week or two, I just protect my mental health and then again come back to Tehran.
Well, obviously the last 2 or 3 days have been very active in Tehran and in various places across Iran. What can you say about where you've seen the protest movement go in the last month since we last spoke? I mean, one wants to believe that it's growing. It certainly isn't dying off. I mean, based on what we're seeing, but we're also seeing a more brutal and murderous crackdown by the regime. What is your perspective?
I think it's growing very much so in the streets, and what I was tracking down this past month only was the term that what is called now gray area, like the people who are opposed of the regime, but they don't participate in the streets.
Right.
And that it's mostly conclude people that are millennials, like they were active in Green Revolution, they were active in Hijdati, but they're not like in the streets protesting right now. And there were lots of critics, like why this intellectual middle class are not participating, why are they in home? And so I myself was just tracking that path this past.
And what is the answer
2
to
weeks.
that? What's the answer to that? Why aren't millennials participating in the same way we would expect, especially given that their younger sisters and brothers are out on the streets?
From talking to my friends and from the things that I was thinking, one of them is that most of them, just being honest, and actually I myself can see that they're afraid that they have been in the streets in Hijati, they have been in the streets during the Green Revolution, the protest for airplane, Bloody November, and all of them. But this time, I think they're afraid, and due to maybe I didn't get panic attacks in Green Revolution during Green Revolution. What I realized about my body in this age is that I can't easily let get physical pain. Like, and the other is that I was thinking is that some people are concentrating on creating contents. Maybe not everything can happening in streets. Like some things can happening. So you can share. You can participate in a revolution in other way. Like I think one of the difference between this revolution demonstrations. Comparing to the previous ones is the active role that social media had. That not only the working class, not only the middle class, not only everybody is out. I think it's about most of them. It's the impact of digital world of social media that right now it's having. The endless contents that right now it's produced in social media, in graphic, video, music, everything, and those are we can't say that they don't have any influence or impact. Those are the things that can affect on a teenager, I don't know, in some very far village or even in have an effect. Wife of ambassador in Tehran, for example, like someone who is in parliament or something, and that's a role that I think is very important too. And some of the people are participating in that section. And
when you say you didn't get panic attacks during the Green Movement or Aubon or Flight 752 protests, but you do now. And the fear factor for millennials, is that to say, I mean, you know, the regime killed 1,500 people in Aubon, but is it to say that these threats of everything from, you know, jailing you to potentially executing protesters, they're having an effect?
One of the things can be social media. Like, for example, in November, we didn't have internet at all. And we were not this advanced to could download VPN and try to get, because right now they had shut down the internet, but everybody has figured it out to access to it. I think the fact that you see what's happening 30 minutes ago in Bazaar or somewhere in London, for example, this visual content. I think they have an impact, and I can speak for myself that the reason for panic attacks and the fear that I honestly should say is that I don't know. I think that I mentally and physically sometimes I think that I can't handle it. I have to rest for a few days and then go back, and I cannot just go on every day and be around or be surrounded by the news and everything every day.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it was horrendous and very worrying when the regime started doing the internet crackdowns again a couple of months ago. But it really does feel different this time. I mean, part of the pretext, part of the reason why so many people were murdered in the Aubon protests is because the internet crackdown was effective enough that information couldn't be passed around, and nor could people see what was happening on the streets. And so the regime sort of went nuts, just murdering a bunch of people and quelling the protests that way. That really hasn't happened this time. I mean, even though we know there's been internet blockages and it's made things very difficult, you guys seem a lot more industrious, and in terms of the protest movement, it has not ebbed. It's the information, videos, anecdotes, conversations have still been able to escape and get across the country and reach us as well. So it's fair to say you're much more plugged in, even though you're inside Iran where the crackdown is happening, than you would have been 3 years ago, yes?
Yes, and you're much more prepared, because in early November, few years ago, it was the first time that the government did something like this, and we all didn't know how we can deal with it, or we didn't know what to do. In that time, I was in Bushehr, and I informed about what was happening in Shiraz from the people who were running away from Shiraz and they came to Bushehr. And it was just, you get news by talking to people. But after months and months and months, you realize that, oh my God, what has happened a few months ago? But this time, or even after that, even during demonstrations for airplane, we all knew that, okay, if something is happening, the first thing you should do, you should download all the VPNs in App Store. So you would be prepared that if they do something like this, you be equipped and wouldn't lost your contact with the world.
You know, we frame so many of these conversations, Homa, as what's the protest movement doing against this regime, and there's an implication, or there's an expectation that the majority of Iranians are in support of this revolution, which I do believe is the case. But if you can tell me, I mean, anecdotally, whether it's within the communications that you're having with other folks, or whether it's in terms of what you're seeing with your own eyes in a place like Kashan, do you see much support for the regime?
Among the people?
Yes.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So in other words,
No.
other than the besiege, or literally the people beating up people and shooting at them, there's no evidence that anybody supports this regime in terms of what you're seeing, huh?
No, but I think after 20 years after the revolution, it was so divided. Like people who were supporting the regime and people who were not. They all shaped their own communities. Like, I don't have anybody that supports the government in family, from my father's side, from my mother's side, or my friends. And I'm not saying that there are not people who are supporting the regime, but we don't know them. I don't know any, because I am not isolated, but all of us are one community that's even in the university, they didn't talk to us, we didn't talk to them, and it was just at the first day of university, it was clear that because of the ideology that we have, it demands that if we are going to be friends or doing projects or not, group projects or not. It was always like this, even when I was a child.
If you were to guess, and I know I understand I'm not going to hold you to account scientifically, but if you were to guess, what percentage of the Iranian population do you think still supports this regime?
As a human, I cannot believe that if someone sees the things that we are seeing in social media and the news, still believe in this regime. But I think that there are still people who their benefits are coming from this regime, so they have to act like that.
Right.
But I don't know. But I cannot believe that someone, especially in this past month, just walk by the street or use the Instagram like we do, and still cannot decide what's good or what's bad.
Yeah. Let me ask you about your own reaction to seeing. I'm sure you saw those videos, those very, very scary videos from the Tehran subway yesterday, with people being shot at from both inside the subway cars and on the platforms. What was the first thing you thought when you saw that?
It might be very sentimental, but whenever I see this kind of stuff, I think that, okay, how would they sleep at night? I don't know if it's too childish or not, but the first thing to my mind is like this, that I cannot believe that someone can do something like this to another human being and still can live normally, wake up next day having breakfast and say to his children or wife and go out and knowing that the rest of the day he's going to be able.
Yeah, it's not. I don't find that childish at all. I
Yeah.
actually, I mean, if it is, it's. I have the same childish view because I asked that same question about half an hour ago in our roundtable here, where, I was saying maybe you guys who grew up in Iran, as opposed to those of us who grew up outside of Iran, have a better understanding of this. But I don't understand how these people. What is this guy thinking who goes there with a gun and I mean, with the regime's blessing or not, goes there and starts shooting at people in a subway? I mean, how can that person live with themselves? And a couple of people, I mean, Shaya said, well, they're brainwashed and this is what they believe is right, and but I can't get my head around it.
No, me neither. I just thinking about it a lot. And yesterday I was talking to one of my friends that he went to the hospital because Hossein Ronaqi was there, and there were some demonstrations a few days ago in Tehran. And we were talking to each other, and he said, let's talk on video call. And when he said that, I knew that, okay, something has happened to his face that he wanted to show me. But I wish that it wasn't the case. But when we turned into video call, I saw that his face was full of stitches and bruise everywhere. And he was in the car, and they broke the glass. One glass just cut one of his eyes. And then they knew that, yes, he lost one of his eyes, but grabbed him anyway out of the car and beat him for a few hours. And in that moment, I was just keep asking him that, what were you feeling? Okay now? Do you? But when I got off the phone, I was just thinking that how did he sleep on that night? Them.
Yeah.
Those people, like, can you just put someone in total blood and then go to sleep? How can you do that? And the next day you woke up and it's all normal.
And what was your friend's crime? Sorry, why did he deserve that? I mean, was this the way you were describing this? He's in a car, just one of those people who's trying to show support for Hossein Ronaqi. So outside of the hospital, is this where this happened?
Yes, his crime was that he was worried about Hossein Ronaqi. That is he going to be okay or not?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Do you see increasing support from? We've talked about how the last 2 or 3 days there's been a lot of businesses closed and strikes, and this was a necessary next step. Are you seeing that kind of support for the revolution? In other words, institutions or businesses or corporations, or so it moving beyond just some students in the streets?
I think that if the Grand Bazaar, go to the strike, a lot of things can happen. They cannot control it, and it would be the best. But my cousin is living Bazaar, and this interesting, funny thing that as long as their machine pose, if I'm saying it right, where you when you put your credit card in it to cash money, whenever you go to the
cash machines.
Saying that as long as cash machines, as long as this is working in their stores, they're not closing their stores. And but I think that but right now I think that in this past 3 weeks or month, it's they are going to strike, and I think if that goes how do you say, bigger, it would be the best. It would be the best, yeah.
I'm sorry to hear about your panic attacks. Are you going to return? No, I really am. I mean, those are very, very difficult and scary. Are you going to return to Tehran soon?
I am going to go to Tehran soon, but one of the things that I think is important to say, Jian, is that my panic attacks are part of them are yes, of course, it's because of what's happening right now, but one of them, the most part of it, it's what's going to happen next. I mean, and by the next, I'm thinking about the best case scenario, that if revolution, and from what I'm seeing right now from intellectuals and the gray area that I'm talking about in Twitter and Instagram, is that I'm very worried that we would do the same mistakes that our parents did during their revolution 40 years ago. And these kind of things really occupy my mind and make me stressful, that if we're going to we have to not do the mistakes again. Of course we have to ask, of course we have to worry, and we have to it's supposed to be important for us that who is going to come next, and or what are we going to do if we're going to do the same thing that they did 40 years ago. It's not going to work. And from the tensions and things that are happening on Twitter, or I see among the intellectuals and people or activists or working in politics and sociology, I was just worried that the next step is also we have to, it's not going to end soon. It's a long way. We have to just thinking through.
Yeah, it is very alarming that there's a giant mountain to climb that is being faced right now, and that's getting rid of the regime. But as you say, after that,
some people they don't like Masih some people they don't like Hamid Ismailian, some people they don't like Pahlavis, and it's even us. What I see and makes me stressful is that even us cannot be how do you say cannot be unified, cannot so okay, we do this now and then we're going to go to the next step. It's not the matter of right now we shouldn't be fighting. And
the hope is that the lessons have been learned, and that the desire for freedom and democracy will trump the idea of just of disunity, and that people will come together and be able to figure out some self-determination for Iranians inside Iran to choose who's going to lead them. But easier said than done. And this is we were just talking about in our roundtable about how we knew. I mean, even 2 months ago, we were saying that this is going to get much worse before it gets better in terms of the regime crackdown. But it's still shocking, even when you know that's going to happen. It's still shocking to see 10-year-old kids being killed, or what happened on that subway yesterday, or some of the street scenes we're seeing. I mean, to actually see it is horrific. There's no way to describe this stuff in nuanced ways. It is just absolutely terrorizing, terrifying. So there's a long way to go. I'm glad to hear your voice. Thank you for taking the time. Be safe in Kashan, and hopefully we'll get to catch up again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much, Jian. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was Homa, as we have been calling her, in Kashan. Thank you to her and all of the people who joined us from inside Iran today, the young activists who are part of the protest movement there and shedding insight in what is happening on the ground in Iran. It's so invaluable to us, and we really appreciate them coming on the program. This is Full Time for Roqe for today. For all things Roqe related, including our previous episodes in this Uprising series, all of our previous programming before that, guests we've had on the show, videos, funnies, outtakes, etc., you can go to our website, roqemedia.com. It's also where you can support us. We crowdsource, and if you want to become a patron, roqemedia.com. We really appreciate it. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together: Sabi Roham, the very talented Anahita, Super Parisa, Smart Pega, Ahay Mehdad, and Groovy Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already on the platform you're listening on right now, or any platform that is part of our group of platforms. You can find me on Instagram at jianghomeshi. Take care of yourselves. Stay strong. See you soon.